Well, I had time to do a second Big Brother update for the day. I figured why not, since I won't be updating again until probably Friday evening when we have a new HOH, and I can't wait for a new HOH so we could be done with Lauren and her poor decision making. Now, I just watched the episode and it was shit. I have a lot of new subscribers, and I just want to say I usually only watch the Thursday episodes, and tonight reminded me why I only do that, because the editing, you get like 5% of the information. The fact that they didn't even give Ashley any credit for not going on the block this week was pretty infuriating. The only good thing about tonight's episode was that Will is so good in DRs that he was very entertaining, sitting up there sounding like Bernie Mac. Listen up, America, this HOH is weak as shit. He didn't say that, but like, that was the vibe he was given. I loved Will's DRs. It made me want him to stay this week. Now, one of the other people on the block going to the live feeds now. I'll say this. A lot of this video tonight is going to be about Jimmy, because I haven't talked about him much over the past week. But Jimmy does play a pretty messy game himself. The difference between Jimmy and Vinny is that Vince plays hard all day, every day. And that's why I've been saying for a while now that he's doing too much, too soon. The fact that he has all these deals with everyone in the house and he has to keep up with them every day, it's a lot. But Jimmy also talks out of both sides of his mouth. It's just that he only does it every once in a while. So his game of trying to play everybody is much more low key than Vince's so far. Adrian, however, who's on the block, is on to Jimmy and the fact that he lies so much, and he's lied to Adrian a lot. He had a conversation with Jimmy today, and I feel like Jimmy did yap a lot in that conversation to Adrian. He threw Ashley under the bus. Jimmy's saying he's going after the people that don't help much around the house, and of course Ashley, as we've discussed before, doesn't do a lot of the cleaning. But I did feel like Jimmy gave Adrian a lot more information than he probably should have. I don't think Jimmy knows that he's so high on Adrian's list as a target. So if Adrian does stay, Jimmy might be in trouble. We'll get back to Jimmy, though, because he is a key in how tomorrow's vote might go down. I also saw on feeds that Adrian seemed to be realizing that he would have felt safer with Mickey as HOH this week instead of Lauren. But of course, earlier, pretty much all week, Adrian has been throwing Mickey under the bus. Now, yes, I know at one point Mickey did help get Adrian on the block this week. But Mickey's also one of the only people who's tried to give Adrian some decent information to help him more socially. It took Adrian way too long to realize this, and now he's probably too far gone in being able to ally more with Mickey. Anyway, then Adrian went back to Lauren, and like I said in my video I did earlier this morning or early afternoon, that was one of the things that put Lauren off about breaking a tie this week, is Adrian pushing her to possibly break a tie this week if it comes to a 6-6 vote. And I did feel like Adrian was begging Lauren again to possibly be a tiebreaker. Later in the day, Lauren was discussing that with Vince, and I feel like Lauren wants to tell Adrian that she would break the tie, because as she told Vince, if she does break the tie, then it looks like she was like keeping it real with him. And if she doesn't break the tie, well, oh well, he's going home anyway, so he can't do anything about it. We're not in the jury phase yet. But she doesn't want to tell Adrian for sure she would break the tie, because she doesn't want him to go around saying that she's going to do this. As I've been saying this week, Lauren is trying to stay neutral, stay in the middle. It's a very hard thing to do as HOH, though. Now, Lauren's closest ally in Vince, who they just love to talk to each other several hours a day, Vince took some time away from Lauren. Not a lot. Vince has been all up on Lauren a lot today again, because he just, I guess, doesn't think that's not going to make them look like a duo. But he did try to have a conversation with Rachel. He's telling Rachel he wants to be on the same page as her. Rachel is telling Vince that she wants to save Kelly this week, especially if it's Kelly versus Adrian, but she knows she doesn't have the numbers. I don't know if Rachel should want to save Kelly. I do think Rachel is definitely very girl powered this season. And I think that's the only reason she wants to save Kelly. Because Kelly would come after her very quickly. But I mean, I guess Adrian would do the same thing. So it's not like the option between Adrian and Kelly isn't like a good one for Rachel specifically. But the most interesting part of the day came when Jimmy and Vince were discussing votes, because Jimmy uses this strategy where he wants people to think that the house is going one way and that he wants to vote with the house. He did this a bit in the first week. He's doing it again this week. That, he wants to be on the right side of the votes is what he's telling Vince. And Vince knows where the votes are. But Vince, as I said this morning and all week, is also one of the people trying to stay in the middle because he's playing all these sides, playing the whole house really, or trying to. But if there are sides, which there really isn't yet, he's trying to play both of those sides. Jimmy did a good job in that conversation with Vince because Vince is trying to be on Rachel's good side. Vince is realizing more and more that Rachel is seeing him for the game that he is playing. And so Vince kind of wants to be on the same side of the vote as Rachel, thinking or hoping that that would save him if he, at least in Rachel's mind, if she wins the next HOH. So Jimmy played that up, that if Vince wants to be on Rachel's good side, he should vote with Rachel, and Rachel's probably keeping Will if it comes down to Will and Adrian on the block. Then Jimmy has a conversation with Zach, tells Zach that Vince is 100% voting against Adrian if it comes down to Will and Adrian. He told Vinny that Zach is 100% voting to keep Will if it's down to Will and Adrian. So, of course, when Zach and Vince discuss this, the two people that are trying to play many different sides, Zach whines about it. He calls it soft bullying, that Jimmy is soft bullying them into voting with him, which was just laughable. Both Vince and Zach are very whiny, and it's hard to root for the guys this season because not only do they act as though the women are dumb sometimes or that they don't know what they're doing, and I typically hate bros in a game like this anyway, but also this cast of guys, a lot of them are just very, very weak. That was a very weak statement. What even is soft bullying? The fact is, Jimmy was just trying to get them to vote with the alliance that they made last night. The alliance I discussed in my video earlier today, the new heavy hitters, where they included Mickey in it now. So it's Mickey, Morgan, Rachel, Jimmy, Vince, Zach. And if Mickey and Morgan and Rachel all want to vote to keep Will, then Jimmy is trying to make them see, as an alliance, we should probably vote to keep Will, which is why I reiterated earlier today, and I'll say it again now, Zach and Vince making that alliance last night was stupid if they are trying to draw a line in the sand. That is definitely overplaying. But I guess these days it's soft bullying to try and get people to vote in an alliance, which, I'm fine with Zach whining about that and saying it because I don't like big alliances. So if that keeps us from a big alliance this season, yes, Jimmy was in fact soft bullying pathetic little Zach. So yeah, Jimmy and Vince were whining about that throughout the night. They continued to whine about it. They whined about it to the HOH Lauren that Jimmy's playing both sides as if they're not. And Jimmy did tell Lauren as well that Vince is for sure voting against Adrian if it comes down to that. I don't know if Lauren will ever agree that Vince is playing too many angles. She seems very much in his web, lost in the sauce, wanting to help him with whatever. I think at this point, after this week, I don't know how Vince and Lauren aren't each other's real number ones because they've just spent so much time talking to each other. So, yeah, I wrote down some quotes in my notes that I thought were funny. Jimmy told Vince, "Keep it up in the air with Adrian, but vote with Will. That's where I am right now. Will is going to get put on the block again eventually. When he does, he's going to crash out and want to go home." You know, not the worst statement from Jimmy. That's the way Will's been acting since being put on the block again this week. I know there's a lot of people that are acting like he wants to quit, and his head was definitely out of the game the other night, as I talked about when the girls had to get his head back in the game. But today he was discussing with Zach that his back hurts, and people thought that was him wanting to quit again. But I actually think that was strategy. Will was trying to make Zach see that Adrian's going to win competitions long before Will does. So I do think that's Will's strategy right now, to seem like the weak old man. But I think he could still be doing more to stay, but he is trying. Vince said to Kat later on that I think it might come down to a 7-5. I don't want Lauren to have to make the decision. I don't want it to be 6-6. Catherine then said, "Me neither. It needs to be Zach, me, you, Jimmy to all vote for Adrian to stay." Kat's been going very hard trying to keep Adrian today, which is funny because a week ago she was acting like she barely wanted to be associated with him. But she's fighting hard for Adrian, and Adrian doesn't even know this. But that was Vince in that conversation trying to, I don't know what to call it, like lightly show Kat that they don't have the votes because Vince doesn't want to be seen as a bad guy either way. Vince is probably really hoping and praying that Adrian wins the blockbuster so he doesn't have to be on one side of the vote or the other, because that hurts his game at this point kind of either way. I also will say that I think yesterday Vinny and Zach kind of were hoping to get Kat to campaign to Jimmy. Vinny and Zach were hoping that they could get Jimmy's vote to vote out Will over Adrian so that then they could do it too, so it doesn't look like they have all this blood on their hands, so that if Jimmy flips, then, you know, why can't they flip too? But today Jimmy kind of put it on them. Jimmy is really trying to put it on them, which kind of serves them right for overplaying with all these different alliances and relationships with different players. It's going to become more and more known that Vinny and Zach are kind of the swing votes this week, and they might piss off some people either way. I like that gameplay from Jimmy, but you know, he's a flip-flopper too. We'll see if he changes his mind. But I think at this point it's safe to say that Zach really isn't that good at the game. I get that he's in one of the best positions and has been, but he plays very emotionally at times. This whole soft bullying thing is just a part of that. But him targeting Ashley so hard is really making no sense on like a game level. He's playing Ashley very well because that was his plan, to get close to her and then get her out of here. But just getting Ashley out for like petty reasons isn't smart. That's not good gameplay. Any actual good game player would use this relationship that he's building with Ashley to try and use her in the game, not be petty and get her out. So I am seeing more and more that Zach's a bit overrated, and until I see him actually make some better decisions, I will continue to think that. So I do think Zach is still in one of the best positions. But with the way Jimmy is playing him and Vince today, you can see the cracks in Zach's game getting bigger. Like I said earlier, Vince was talking to Lauren. That's when Lauren was saying that maybe she should tell Adrian that she will split the vote, but I don't know if they ever agreed on telling him. Vince was also trying to tell Lauren in that conversation that he should vote out Adrian because then it looks like he didn't do what Lauren wanted him to do, and it doesn't look like he's some big mastermind. Vince has been thinking these past 2 days, how can he get this big target that's growing on him smaller again? Because he is seeing the signs that more and more people are on to his game. I have a few notes here on Kat and Riley. They had another awkward encounter today when Kat was called to the diary room. She asked Riley if they said her name. Riley said, yeah, it said go to the diary room, but it said sit on my lap first. Callie said, oh boy, and Riley said it actually did. And Callie called out Riley for being inappropriate and that Kat doesn't like it when he's inappropriate. I don't know if Kat doesn't like it when he's inappropriate because they're all up on each other all the time. But I think that was another example of Riley is only here for one thing, and that's trying to get some sex because he certainly isn't playing the game. Mickey later actually tried to have a game conversation with Riley, which is just an interesting thing to watch on feeds because Riley has no thoughts on the game. He has, like, it's funny, people giving Mickey some crap for giving Riley information and Riley not giving too much information back to her. Not that she gave away that much information, but Riley doesn't really have information to give because he isn't really playing. I do think Mickey, like, I get that she's trying to play with more people, but Adrian's thrown her under the bus. Wouldn't be surprised if Riley throws her under the bus. She needs to tread carefully. She has a great social game, but sometimes she be saying a little too much. And lastly, we must talk about Keanu, who continues to give me more and more of a headache. He brought his delusions and bad reads back to Rachel, trying to get Rachel and Jimmy to vote with him and these 5 guaranteed votes that he has. But he basically gave away all the information of who really wants to vote out Will this week over Adrian. And so Rachel can basically see from this conversation that a bunch of guys and Kat want to vote together. And Rachel has been the main one preaching all summer that she won't let bros run the game, or she doesn't want to let the bros run the game. So I like this weird relationship between Keanu and Rachel where Keanu thinks he's the only person in this game that truly knows what's going on, but he hasn't had any good reads all season. Rachel, of course, brought that information quickly back to Mickey, Will, and Ashley, and they are discussing would Zach really vote the way Keanu is saying. Keeping Keanu in this game is so bad for the Vinces and the Jimmys and the Laurens because he will just give away whatever little information he actually figures out from that side of the house that keeps putting him up as a pawn, or actually as the target, but he thinks a pawn. But he keeps trying to work with them. It really is pretty mind-boggling, and I love to see Rachel keep playing him because it actually does work for her game that somehow she's getting Keanu's trust out of everyone with the way they started against each other this season. Although that was Keanu's fault. Rachel did try to work with him at the beginning. So to sum up the night, going into tomorrow's vote, Jimmy's playing Vince and Zach to really make them have to make the main decision today. They were trying to do the same thing to Jimmy, but that's not working because of the stupid alliance they made last night. And Jimmy's like, hey, you got to vote with us now. And then that was the stupid soft bullying shit. The funny thing is, Adrian's probably just going to win the blockbuster, and then it's Callie versus Will, and all this discussion doesn't mean shit, and Callie's probably going home. But it was a pretty entertaining day to watch everyone try and push their own little agendas. If it does come down to Will and Adrian, we'll see who gets their way. But I have a hard time seeing Vince want to draw a line in the sand because he plays pretty spineless. The ironic thing is that Zach should be the one that's thinking that because he has a lot to lose. He has been playing the middle better than Vinny because Vinny's so out there all the time. But I think Zach is more gung-ho to want to keep Adrian, as he should be. Adrian can be his right-hand man. Adrian gives him so much information that he just uses and abuses. But it could be looking bad for Adrian if it does come down to him versus Will, but this probably all leads to Callie just being out.